Hello everyone and welcome to a D&D book review. But what is this? Why, this is no RPG book. Of what use is this tome to me? Well, we will find out about it very soon as I take a look at Heroes Feast, the official D&D cookbook. This book was written by most of the authors from the Art and Arcana book, and has over 80 recipes developed by professional chef Adam Reed. There's a nice little bit of RPG fluff in this book, mostly from the Forgotten Realms, but also drawing from other popular D&D settings like Dragonlance. Most of the illustrations in this book are recycled from previous books, but there is some very nice photography as well. This book has great recipes no matter what level of chef you are currently. For a beginner chef like myself, I finally got to use some of the more interesting ingredients that I never got to use before, including those juniper berries that I got on clearance a while back. One of the neat things about this book is that it teaches you how to make stuff that you normally find pre-made in the stores, such as this lovely dill sauce. Here's a picture of the tavern steak with proper crust. So let's go through one of the easier recipes, some of the dwarven tide-me-overs. This is kind of like a Swedish meatball type situation. Now, I did use some very heavy brown bread, so this was a bit of a substitution, though obviously any kind of dark bread, like rye bread, would be good. This is really dark wheat bread, so this should be fine. You know, a lot of this stuff is just basic cooking stuff that you generally just, sometimes don't do anymore. Like, you would just go to the store and just buy meatballs. Instead of making them fresh yourself, just making something fresh is just such an improvement over buying even really expensive stuff from the store. I do want to note that I substituted several ingredients in this recipe, but things still turned out fine. This was a matter of just not having access to those specific things. For example, I used beef stock instead of beef broth. Here I am cutting up some dill. Fresh dill is so amazing. Another substitution, I did not have cream. I did have access to half and half, so I substituted that. That should be fine. Here we are doing the basic prep for the meatballs, combining eggs and milk with the breadcrumbs that I just made, and letting those sit for a while before smashing them up into a paste later on. On to the next step of preparing the onions for the mince. Just gonna let these cook a little bit and then add some salt. Let them cook down a little bit more. Let the onions get some color, start to become translucent, and then hit them with some allspice. Another spice that I've never used before. So again, I'm learning a lot here. Keep them moving, don't let them get burnt. I'm back to the breadcrumbs here after letting them soak. I'm smashing them up, so these are ready to combine with the meat. And this cheapo little scale that I got is such a useful thing. I'm weighing out grams of meat now. You can zero it out and just get precisely as much meat as you need. A little scale like that, very helpful. A little bit more salt and pepper with the main spice here before I dump the meat in and combine everything. Oh, I'm also doing the little trick here of measuring out freshly ground pepper. You can grind it into the cap, and that way you'll have your freshly ground pepper, which you can measure out. The caps are made to do like that. It's a little thing that I've never done until today. And so now my meatball base is meatball mince, or whatever you want to call it, is all set to go. I did not have the proper setup for this. You're supposed to kind of use a little grilling rack in your oven. And I don't have that, so I just used a basic baking pan, and these turned out fine. So yeah, again, showing you don't need to do everything perfectly, but it certainly helps to try to follow the recipe as closely as you can. Here I am making the I don't know how to pronounce it, the butter and flour material, which then you keep on stirring and stirring and stirring until it starts to become brown. Now I'm adding my stock to it. This is the start of the sauce that I'm going to put on the meatballs after they come out of the oven. This is probably the most labor-intensive part of the recipe, just making sure that the roux does not burn as you continually just stir and stir and stir. I screwed up a little bit, obviously. I let it sit there unstirred for a long time, but I was able to get it smooth enough with continued stirring, so it wasn't an issue. Adding a little bit of tamari soy sauce. And some freshly squeezed lemon juice, which I greatly enjoy doing. You gotta watch out for the seeds if you do it this way. And some more pepper. And I did end up with a much darker sauce than is in the picture of the recipe. I can only assume this is because I let the butter and flour sit a little bit too long without stirring constantly, so it got a little bit darker, but I don't think that affected the taste or the consistency in any negative way. So to finish up this recipe, I'm going to let all the meatballs plop into the sauce and stir it up. And as a wise man once said, let the dill rain down from the heavens. And we have a lovely set of meatballs, which would make a excellent full meal or just a party snack for your next game of D&D. I plated it up with some pita bread and some mixed greens and a hunk of cheese. This is a full meal on its own, and I think it turned out pretty dang spectacular. This is an incredibly fun and somewhat useful cookbook. It's definitely gotten me out of my little corner of cooking that I was kind of focused on before, and it really helped me try some new stuff, but this is still incredibly beginner friendly, even though it will teach you how to maybe use some new ingredients that you generally don't use a lot in basic cooking. It still has a lot of shortcuts and easy recipes, so you're not going to be overwhelmed. For example, what you're looking at right now is the hand pie recipes, which the preparation is pretty easy, but it does have the shortcut of using the pre-made pie dough that you can buy in the store. And this is my first time using this, and yeah, I mean, it's obviously not homemade or anything, but I mean, if you want to do something quick for, like, you know, a party situation or something like this, or more importantly, if you're learning how to cook, these recipes are very useful to make it easy on you. So then perhaps next time you could make your own pie crust or take more steps if you would like. The tavern pie thing turned out very nice. I ended up making 3 savory pies, as well as this lovely skull apple pie inspired by Warhammer. And I didn't have a brush, so here I am brushing on the egg mixture with a bit of paper towel. When you don't have the tools, you improvise. And you know what? These turned out very nice. As you can see here, they might not be the most aesthetically pleasing for my first attempt, but they turned out delicious, especially the apple pie, which Kringle got to before I was able to. So if you're interested in both D&D and cooking, I think this is a very fun and useful book to have around the house. It is also certainly a very beautiful book that there was a lot of time and effort put into. It might also be useful as a DM to go through this book, not just to consider the somewhat limited fluff that's in there, but then to actually consider, well, what sort of food is in your world? Certainly an interesting facet to consider. If you are interested in purchasing this book, I will put an Amazon link in the video description. Also note that there is a limited edition that is only sold at Barnes & Noble, which includes a map of the Forgotten Realms. I hope everybody enjoyed this book review and a look into my amateur attempts at cooking. If you're interested in more videos from me, please subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. And if you're interested in supporting this channel, those links are also in the description.